Mauser. I was an ag teacher here, for those of you that don't know me. In Illinois for 7 years, I taught at Tri-Valley High School and had the opportunity to come to this exact hotel several times as part of the IAVAT conference. As a matter of fact, the last time I was at this hotel, I was an ag teacher. And the last time I was given the microphone at this hotel, it was to karaoke, I believe. A little place right over in there. And I apologize to those of you that had to witness that back then. I will assure you, I've grown up since then. You'll not see me do that unless you stick around. So, I think what I have to offer today and what I'd like to share with you is kind of a view from above. In other words, what does it look like once you step out of the classroom and truly have a chance to look at what ag programs are doing? And what I'm going to tell you today is that through my experience in 8 years as a principal, what I've begun to understand more so than ever, and certainly in my time as the Illinois Committee for Ag Education chairperson, what I can say is I understand that we in agriculture and you in agriculture classrooms are doing things right. And I'll explain to you why here in a few minutes as we move through our day. But to start off with, I want to tell you, I think I've got the ability to see that global perspective that I don't know that I could see 8, 9 years ago. And what I want to talk about is what are the challenges we face today in education. And as I talk to teachers, and I'm blessed in the fact that I have the opportunity to meet with teachers a lot. And I get to do workshops with different teachers and different schools and so forth. That's one of the things I've been fortunate to get a chance to do, as well as to talk to students. And so I get a chance to see a lot what kids and teachers are thinking in various schools. And I think I got a pretty good idea as to what the challenges are that we're facing in education. We'll talk a little bit. A lot of times when you get to these conferences, and you come to a teacher conference, and when I speak at different teacher conferences, I have these opportunities to talk to everybody. You want to get folks fired up about what they do, but I think at the same time, we've got to be realistic about what people think about the profession of education. And I think sometimes maybe we forget what the outside view is. And it's not hard to see today when you turn on the television, you take a look at the media, and you start to see we get our summers off, right? During the summer, you're not going to the FFA Fair, State Convention, IAVAT, and all the other things you do. They think you got a summer off. It's a cush job, 9 months a year, 8 to 3, right? In addition, how many of you have seen Waiting for Superman? Raise your hand if you've seen that film. If you haven't seen that film, go see it. Rent it. Waiting for Superman is a documentary that talks about education today. And it talks about what the public perception of education, especially in inner city schools, is. And if you haven't figured it out, the perception is not good. And it's not good because there are bad examples out there of schools. And there are bad examples out there of teachers. And before we begin talking about the things we do right, I think it's a really, really important thing to understand some of the things out there that people think about what we do wrong. Last thing I want to tell you, then I'm going to let you go. So never underestimate the impact that you have on the lives of other people, because I think it's important. Anytime I have a chance to talk to students or teachers, I tell this exact same story. I had a teacher that's name was Mrs. Jean Davis. Some of you have probably heard me talk about this before if you've had to listen to me talk. Mrs. Davis was my 8th grade English teacher at Parkside Junior High in Norman. And I remember Mrs. Davis, she had this way with her where I'd be talking in class and she'd say, you need to just shut up and get out. So every day I got kicked out of class for talking, being too loud, doing whatever. And I hated Mrs. Davis. She was mean, she was old, she was crusty. Okay? Didn't like her. I was a wrestler at the time, not a very good one. And I remember I had a wrestling meet that night. She kicked me out of class, came out and said, Mr. Mauser, or Dave, we didn't call him Mr. Mauser, obviously. Dave, when's your wrestling meet tonight? And I told her, and I thought for sure I was going to get kicked off the team. That's not what happened. That night I go to the meet, we wrestle, whatever. I look across and I see this old lady, 2 years away from retirement, sitting there watching me. She comes over afterwards, she shakes my hand. This is what she says to me. Dave, I know wrestling's important to you. I wanted to show you some respect today and come watch it. My class is important to me. Would you mind showing me the same level of respect tomorrow? I've told that story for years. And I'm telling you, that thing just stuck with me that day. I became really good friends with Jean Davis. She got me involved in these contests called public speaking, things that dorks did, right? And I got really involved in these contests and activities, and she got me involved in these things. I fell in love with Mrs. Davis. She retired a few years later. And as I went on to U of I, probably 4 years after that, I remember I came back one summer, I found out Mrs. Davis was sick. I didn't have time to go see her. I was busy doing things college kids do. And I remember I finally got back and I wanted to go see Mrs. Davis. So I called over. I said, hey, can I come see Mrs. Davis? Mr. Davis answered the phone. He said, today's not a good day. And I remember what happened next. It just sticks in my mind. She passed away a couple weeks later. I don't say that to make you sad because she lived a life worth celebrating, period. Impacted people every day. And I walked into that visitation. I remember this sticks with me and will forever. As I walked through the visitation, I was shaking hands, whatever, and it was a sad deal, but again, it's life worth celebrating. But there was a table sitting there, and the table had pictures of Mrs. Davis and me. Her daughter walked up to me and said, "You're Dave Mauser. You were her favorite student." She never told me that. And I never took the time to tell that woman what she meant to me. And I will regret that forever. Now I'm going to tell you, when I tell that story to a group of kids, it's amazing to see how they respond. Because those kids love you. What they don't understand, what your students don't get, is that you love them too. They don't get that. What if each day we went out of our way, not necessarily to say I love you, but to let kids know how much we care about them as individuals. That's what rigor in relationships is all about. That's what it takes to have survival skills for the next. So what do we do well? Instead of focusing on what's wrong in education, I'd like us to be the model. I would like ag education to be the model. It already is in Illinois in terms of curriculum. If you don't believe it, talk to the people at the state board who say they want everybody to do what ag ed is doing. Because we're already the model in terms of curriculum. We differentiate for every child. We provide their survival skills. We've got the greatest industry in the world behind us with a value system that's special. We need to get active and share and provide leadership and education. I challenge all of us to